Um, okay, so I think we are currently recording. All right. So well, first of all, I just want to say it's finally nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too.
And I think it's pretty cool that we work for the same hospital. That's pretty neat.
It is.
With everybody in our class, some from different locations, it's nice to have people that are kind of local. So,
yeah.
Do you want to start and talk about some of your theories that you think works with your practice?
Sure, and I'll be honest, I focused a lot on the transformational leadership just because I'm in the leadership cohort. I'm not really sure if you're in leadership or education. I didn't look at that or not.
Yeah, I'm doing leadership as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, good.
Yeah.
So I chose to look into really the transformational leadership and looked at the background of it. And so I guess I just kind of go through, I typed up some stuff about it. I guess I just go through it and then we discuss it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
What that sounds like for first read?
I think so.
Okay. So, of course, it was first introduced in 1978 by James Burns. And leadership occurs when the leader engages with followers in a way that raises their level of performance and motivation. And those influenced by transformational leaders find meaning and value in their work and make significant contributions to their organizations. And they make them feel good about themselves and their contributions. And the 4 key attributes of transformational leaders are they serve as role models. And kind of what I thought about when I read that was they walk the walk. They walk the walk and talk the talk. So whatever they say, whatever they tell people to do, they do it themselves. It's not that they kind of dictate and say this needs to be done. They're willing to kind of go about that and do it themselves as well. They inspire and motivate their followers by having a strong vision about their work. They're concerned about individuals and demonstrate genuine concern for their needs and feelings. And they challenge and develop their followers to be innovative and creative thinkers. They create environments to promote higher levels of job satisfaction and organizational commitment, which increases patient satisfaction and reduces adverse events. They also enhance nurses' satisfaction by promoting a positive work environment and reducing staff turnover. And it's also the major component now in our magnet model that's developed by the ANCC, which is a journey that we're currently on at my hospital. So that's kind of interesting to kind of read more about this. Mm-hmm. And then skill development. As I researched more and more about transformational leadership, I found a lot of tools that I found kind of interesting personally, and how it's important to really examine yourself and who you are and how you lead. And after recognizing your opportunities for improvement, then you can make those decisions and kind of transform yourself into being that transformational leader. But it says that there's questions you should ask yourself. And first it was, I would never require a follower to do something I would not do myself. My followers would say that they know what I stand for. Inspiring others has always come easy to me. My followers would say I am attentive to their needs and concerns. My followers have told me that my enthusiasm and positive energy is infectious. Even though I could easily do a task myself, I delegate it to expand my followers. Team creativity and innovation are keys to success. I encourage my followers to question their most basic way of thinking. And I'll be honest, I had a real difficulty with one of those questions, was delegating tasks, because I have a hard time with that personally. Not that I don't want them to do it, but that in nursing we have so much to do. I hate to ask my staff to do more and more and more. Mm-hmm. So I tend to kind of do it myself, which after researching this, I realized maybe I need to give them some more opportunity to do that. And then, of course, looking at more about the transformational leader, of course, they should have high level of emotional intelligence and the ability to create an empowered environment, foster innovation, and enhance critical thinking. And of course, then there's the 4 elements of transformational leadership, which is idealized influence, or sometimes also called charisma. And it challenges the nurse leader to be an effective, positive role model. It reflects the leader's ability to inspire and serve as a role model for outstanding professional practice. Inspirational motivation is the second one, and it's the ability to inspire and motivate their staff. And they must be visible and form nurturing relationships with nurses and other medical staff. Intellectual stimulation is the leader's ability to facilitate and encourage their nursing staff to exercise problem-solving and creative thinking. And wanting them to do that even with their daily tasks. So like I mentioned earlier, with like even the most basic things that we do, challenging that and looking at and saying, is that really the best way to do this? Because we have a lot of things that we do because it's how we've always done it, not because it's really the best way to do it. Mm-hmm. And then individual consideration is the leader must recognize and express concern appropriately about their staff as individuals with their own strengths, needs, and feelings. And then, of course, there's also qualities that the leader needs from their teammates as well, which are commitment to excellence, passion about their work, a clear vision and strategic focus, trustworthiness, respectfulness, accessibility, empathy and caring, and commitment. And another thing was asking for feedback, which is something, I try to do, honestly, but I have a hard time getting the feedback I feel like I need. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I necessarily would think they're wanting to say something bad and they won't say it, but it's hard to kind of step outside and say things to your leader maybe that as a nurse you would think maybe has a negative connotation. So maybe that's why they're not. So I really don't know why they won't open up. But the 4 questions that I found online that they say we should ask our followers is, what should I keep doing as a leader? What should I do more of as a leader? What should I do less of? And what should I stop doing? And as much as I try to seek that feedback, I feel like they don't give it to me. And it's maybe that they don't have anything to say that I need to kind of stop doing or do something better. But one thing we have recently instituted in my department is what we call MDI huddles, and we do them every single morning. And they follow a very strict format that's set by our lean team. Mm-hmm. So we go through, and I guess the initial part's what I like the most about it is we look at ideas, problems, concerns. So we talk about, of course, any equipment that might be broken, but also what's going well on the unit and what's not going well. Mm-hmm. And at that time, they have the floor to bring up anything that's kind of troubling them. And of course, we go through 3 metrics. We have metrics that we discuss as well and how we're doing in those, what we need to do better. And they come up with all of the ideas on how to improve. Mm-hmm. So it's not that we're kind of top down saying this is what you need to do to fix it. It's coming from them saying this is what we can do better and how we plan to do that. Mm-hmm. A recent kind of turn, though, is because our focus for those 3 things, because we're just kind of getting started, was looking at our GetWell, which is a interactive patient education software, our video usage. Of course, missed punches, so not clocking in and out like they're supposed to at the time clock. And one of our metrics is also setting our bed alarms by 10 p.m., which is a measure to reduce falls on our unit. Mm-hmm. And our acuity has gotten higher. So some of the nurses, they didn't bring it up at huddle, but they mentioned it to one of the nursing supervisors at night, that they were like, why are we so focused on these videos when our patients are so sick and our acuity is higher? And we realized as a leadership team that that was something we were kind of working on the back burner, because we had already mentioned to, of course, my boss, I had mentioned to her that our acuity was really high and it's really stressful on the unit. So I had already talked over a plan with her to figure out how we could start tracking this so we could go to administration and say, hey, we need to look at these ratios. We have this many patients on our unit each day that's really high acuity. We need to decrease the ratios for that group. Mm-hmm. And we didn't share that with them, which, in hindsight and kind of looking at all this, we really should have come out and said, hey, we realize this is an issue. Let's talk through the process, and kind of gone through getting their input and opinion and allowing them to be the bottom line of this decision-making process. So that's one way we're trying to utilize this on my department, is trying to give them back the control. And of course, as always, giving them the control with shared governance is another way we do in my department, which I guess is probably all hospitals now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really helpful, definitely. Good. That was great. I mean, I think I like what you mentioned about the 4 questions that they suggest as a leader, because I think I do the same thing with my people, is try to ask them, like today we had a meeting, and so I try to get them to evaluate the meeting, give me a score 1 to 5. How did you think it went? But I do ask for feedback from them. And I think, like you said, it's very hard to get that feedback. But I think what I might try the next time is just to do almost like a little Survey Monkey and just see what they say. It'd be interesting to get that feedback, for my growth personally.
And see, that's what I try to tell them. I try to tell them, it's not about you saying I'm not doing something right, but I know I can do it better. Yeah. So give me that feedback so we can be a better team together.
Exactly. Yeah. So it sounds like you're very much on board. I think you said you'd been in that management role for a few years.
Since 2011.
Wow. Yeah. So that's great. It sounds like you're doing the right stuff, and definitely this is going to be helpful for your growth as a manager as well. So good deal. So my take on this assignment was I did it a little bit differently because, so I work in case management, outpatient case management. And so a lot of what we work with is trying to encourage our patients to improve their health outcomes, to try to reduce healthcare spending, go into the ED, go into the hospital all the time, and really take control of their own health. So a few different theorists that I kind of focused on was, I think initially right off the bat, the first one that I kind of came in contact with was Orem. And I think way back when I was in nursing school, we actually studied Orem. It has been a long time, so it's been a while. But her self-care deficit theory, and looking at self-care, looking at self-care deficit, and looking at nursing systems, I think is very applicable to what we do. Definitely, what Orem's thought is that the nurse will provide the care to the patient until the patient's able to provide that care. So oftentimes what we do is work with patients when they are in transition, oftentimes coming out of the hospital and moving into the home environment. So a lot of times they are not really at the point that they can provide their own self-care. And that's where we kind of jump in and do a lot of the education to the patients, help them with MedRec, help them with whatever kind of social or community needs that they might have at home. So we've got a whole team. We've got dietitians, pharmacy, social workers, behavioral health. So we kind of reach out to every part of the team that we need to jump in and help the patients so that they can be more prepared and ready to take control of their own self-care. One of the other theorists that I think is important is Nightingale, and looking at her environmental theory, looking at and just kind of going through her whole history, and me doing the PowerPoint on her, I really learned a lot about the environment and how she felt like environment was extremely important to patients, and how having the different essentials in your environment would help you with with health and improvements of health or illness. And that includes, having clean water, or, drinking water, even for some patients, having food that's appropriate. That can be a challenge to my patients, because oftentimes we have patients that come from very low socioeconomic backgrounds. They're not able to go to the store and buy the top brand foods or the organic foods. Oftentimes they're trying to buy whatever's cheapest that their food stamps can purchase. So it's a matter of trying to find creative ways that they can get healthy foods on a budget. Also trying to work with them as far as trying to help their health and helping them to get to the doctor's appointment. But when you don't even have a home to live in, and you're worried about feeding your children and where your kids are going to go to school, that takes priority. So it really is very patient-focused and patient-driven. I can't try to convince you to quit smoking when you're worried about where you're going to sleep tonight. So really having to go to where the patient is to meet them on their level and try to work with them is definitely a challenge. And I think that kind of encompasses both Orem and Nightingale's philosophies. Virginia Henderson was a third one that I kind of roped in there, and I think that's important because she looked at patient-centered care, and patient-centered care is most definitely what we try to focus on. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but we do motivational interviewing. Have you ever heard of that? Yeah, so we try to really focus on what the motivators are for that patient, what the patient's readiness is to be able to make a change. Oftentimes, it may be a matter of, just having contacts with that patient and me being almost a social support or someone that they can talk to on the phone and just hash out how terrible their day was, and just know that somebody else is there that will pick up the phone and listen to them. And when they're ready, then we can kind of reapproach, let's try to move forward and try to improve your health. So oftentimes, our work with the patients can last for a very, very long time. We might start engaging with someone and they're not at a readiness level. So we might keep contact with them once a month, every 2 months. And when the patient decides that they're finally, hey, I need so-and-so to help me with this, they kind of reach back out to us, which is nice. And, sometimes we end up case managing patients for a very extended period of time and actually end up having some really nice positive outcomes, which is always, the time that you can pat yourself on the back and be glad for the work that you do. I think in trying to roll these all into our work, like I said, everything's pretty much patient-centered. It's very focused on the environment and what is their environment? Do they have supports at home? Do they live somewhere where they can get to the bus station or walk to the bus station? Do they have everything they need as far as their children going to school? Do we need to reach out to the school nurse and try to help, patch together a plan for the child as far as that goes? So we try to look at all those different things. As far as moving forward, we also are heavily involved with shared governance so that our nurses and other staff can be involved in the decisions we make and how we try to move forward in helping our patients. One thing that we're focused on this year is really trying to roll out and do clinical pathways. We had clinical pathways a few years back, and that kind of went away as we went away from specific disease management focuses. We just kind of went to managing pretty much patients that had multiple chronic conditions. And so now we're getting back to, we have a lot of new staff, a lot of new case managers that are trying to learn the role, and we feel like it's a really good time to try to get everybody on the same page with standardization and trying to roll out clinical pathways. So the clinical pathways, I think, very easily can incorporate into these different theories and the ways that we're trying to move forward and meet the needs of our patients, involve them in what decisions they make. Another one of our clinical, I don't know if you guys do it at your hospital, we actually also have a PFAC, which is a Patient Family Advisory Committee. So we actually have family patients and some family members that come in, and when we want to look at providing educational materials to our patients, or when we talk about since we do transitional care, we have hospital visiting nurses that see the patients while they're in the hospital. And so the information that we go in and share with the patients at the time that they're in the hospital, we run that by the PFAC committee and say, hey, what do you think? Is this too much information? What do you want to hear about how we help you? What is helpful to you? And so those kind of things are really good at giving us feedback at the ways we can improve the way we reach out to our patients and serve their needs. So it's kind of nice to see those different things. I think we're definitely going to be focusing a lot more on meeting, doing whatever kinds of things we can do to meet the patient where they're at. We also try to go out and do patient education, sometimes in groups. So we were just talking today in my team meeting about some of the nurses that I've got going out and doing diabetes care management, or what we call a gearing up, where it teaches them, there's different focuses, but it teaches them, there's a focus that's called EAT and talks about eating healthy. There's sleep, which talks about healthy sleep. A whole section that talks about activity and, various different parts of taking care of yourself as a whole. And so we've got a few people that are going to start going out. And we also have what you would call peer advocates or peer supports. So we have one person who used to be a patient of ours and actually did really well and improved her health and wanted to help others. And she came on as a volunteer. We ended up hiring her, and she actually works a lot with some of the patients that we have and can really provide support in the fact that she's been there and done that, and she can say, I know you can get through this. I can be there for you. So I think involving that whole team, trying to really focus on what the needs can be for the patients will help us in moving forward. So those are some of the strategies that I'm trying to incorporate with what I'm learning in school and bring back to work.
And definitely, and as you were talking, I went back to something that we've recently started. We've been doing it probably about a month now. And it's our rounding that we do with multidisciplinary team. So we involve all of our case managers, respiratory physical therapy, physicians. And in my previous role at another facility, we attempted to do this in our ICU, which you would think would be easier because it's a smaller group of people. Mm-hmm. It was never quite as functional as this one is. And being able to see it from the start to where it's at now is amazing. But we sit down and we discuss all the patients on the floor, which is a large unit. It's a 38-bed telemetry unit. So it's very busy, very complex patients most of the time. Of course, we have some just your routine in and out chest pain patients, which are normally fairly easy to go through. But then we have those complex patients that we have to really think about and how we're going to get them the care that they need when, honestly, as a nurse, I don't concern myself with payers and if their insurance company is going to cover this when they're discharged or that when they're discharged. I think about the care I'm giving them right here and now, and really I'd never thought about that post-discharge. Mm-hmm. And this has really opened my eyes to seeing, okay, well, this insurance that's through Medicare won't pay for any more days at an acute facility or something, which that's probably incorrect because I don't understand all of that insurance stuff yet. Mm-hmm. But then they have to have 3-night stays to be able to go here. And it's just amazing at all of the stuff that has to be met for these patients to get the care that they need.
Exactly.
When they're discharged from the hospital. It just really amazes me at what a lot of our elderly population has to kind of deal with on a daily basis to be able to get the care and help they need.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a lot. Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that we are actually trying to engage as well with the inpatient case managers. It's a little difficult because it can confuse patients when we're the folks that work with them after they leave the hospital, and when, occasionally if they go to the hospital, and a nurse might go to the hospital to see her patient, and so she'll talk with the case manager that's inpatient that's doing the discharge planning. So, there's been times that both nurses have walked into the patient's room and it's a little confusing to them. So we're trying to kind of overcome those challenges and make it a little bit more seamless. We know that working together is going to make it more seamless, but sometimes it gets a little muddy for the patients. So we're trying to work on ways to do that. So it sounds like, even though we're in different arenas of nursing, our focus is always the same thing, and we're trying to improve patient outcomes and how can we make for a more smooth transition and making sure that they get what they need when they leave the hospital. Yeah.
And of course, always, restoring them back to as best we can to where they were pre-hospitalization, which is not always possible. Yeah. But meeting them where they're at, I think, is the biggest thing, and understanding that not all patients are in the place where they may need skilled nursing. But I realize more and more as we go through these multidisciplinary rounds that some patients absolutely just refuse. Yeah. I'm going home. I want to go home with my family. I want to be there with my wife. And neither the husband or the wife can care for themselves. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to kind of see kind of what our case managers see on a daily basis that, as a nurse, taking care of the same group of patients I've never really seen before. Mm-hmm. Because I'm doing what they need. I'm caring for them. But who's going to do that when they get home?
Exactly. They should not have that ability to continue. And it's interesting too because, they have the right to make that decision. And even though it kills you to watch that, obviously you have to, if there's a point that it's, completely unsafe, you have to step in. But it's definitely hard when they are of sound mind and can make a decision that that's what they want, to be able to stand behind it knowing, oh, I don't feel good about this. All right. Well, I think probably we have addressed everything in our assignment. Do you agree that it seems
I think we have.
Okay. Well, I think that's great. So what it looks like now I have to do is just I would think I have to post.
Yeah, it looks like we post the URL in the Hangout session activity.
So I will post it to YouTube, kind of like I did the PowerPoint, and I will post it also on our class. And I'll text you just to let you know that it's gone through. And if you have, you probably want to check and just make sure you can get on it. If you have difficulties, just let me know and we'll repost until we get it on there.
Sounds great.
All right. Awesome. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
You too.
All right.
Bye.